Is this a $20,000 toaster? Let's stress test it. Whoa, a spark and smoke? This thing is pushing limits.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Herman, and I'm the proud new owner of a DGX Spark. I got it about 3 days ago, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. One thing that I did a lot of searching for, which before I purchased it, was trying to find a decent YouTube video where somebody actually ran real world type applications on the DGX Spark, just to kind of see what will this thing actually do, as opposed to seeing what I was able to find, which is basically guys running just standardized benchmark type operations, measuring the teraflops and all this other kind of stuff, which to me is kind of semi-useless. I mean, it sounds impressive and everything like that, but my question was, what will this thing really do? What can I really do with it? I'm a computer engineer. I'm a computer enthusiast. Used to have my own software business, so on and so forth. So, I basically started off working on a mainframe computer, CDC 6400. I've worked on Unix computers back in the day, and of course, I kind of grew up with PCs as they developed from DOS all the way up through the first version of Windows to the current version of Windows. I've tinkered around with microcontrollers, Raspberry Pis, just the standard kind of stuff that the computer enthusiast, likes to play with. And, I just wish they'd, had this kind of stuff back when I was going to, in graduate school and stuff like that. But, unfortunately, we didn't have those tools back then in the early 80s. So, but, you can't stop progress, as they say. And, some of the stuff that's at your fingertips today, like the DGX Spark is pretty incredible. Like I said, I'm very happy with the results that I've seen so far, and that's what I'm hoping to share with everyone today. I'm going to basically do some comparisons of the video generation time of say the Spark versus a big data center, like Grok, which is basically runs on terawatts of energy, or whatever, gigawatts of energy, versus the 100 watts that's used by the DGX Spark. And like I said, we're going to look at some videos. We're going to look at some other things, video generation, say voice generation, music generation, things like that I've set up here in the last 3 days and got working. And, like I said, very incredible. And I'm also then going to load like the Llama 70B LLM large language model, which is around a 40 gigabyte download. So it takes about an hour with, like 100 megabit, type connection. So to download. So it's a fairly robust, model. Okay, let's look at let's just start off by looking at the basics of the Spark itself, okay? So I'm just going to read off screen here. The NVIDIA DGX Spark is powered by a GB, which stands for Grace, which is, I think, the name of the CPU that NVIDIA uses, and B is the Blackwell architecture of the GPU hardware. The 10, I'm pretty sure, stands for the 10 cores. Okay. So anyway, features a 20-core ARM CPU with 10 high-performance Cortex 925 cores. And like I said, it runs around 100 watts peak. Idle, it'll sit there about 4 watts, running nothing at all. The hardware boosts clock speed of the CPU, I guess, or the overall, processors around 2.8 gigahertz. I'm seeing that most of the time. This is nvtop. Right now, the GPU is running about 2.4 gigahertz, and the temperature at idle is around 40 degrees Celsius. Right now I've got, I loaded the, kind of like preloaded the ComfyUI, interface along with the WAN. So, with the WAN model loaded, it's around, 52 gigabytes, give or take a little bit. And the loading off the 4 terabyte hard drive is, second or 2 second at most. By the time you basically load it, click the load button. I'm running it as a service, by the way. But by the time you load the service and have a chance to basically, open up a tab and then, click on the URL for the, the host computer, i.e. the DGX Spark, it's up and running, ready to go. And that basically also applies to the 70B Llama large language model. It only takes a few seconds to load. And we'll go ahead and load that in a little bit. Okay, so we've gone over the specs here of what the GPU is all about. And next thing I think we'll start looking at is, let's go into ComfyUI, okay? So this right here is the image to video that I'm going to use to kind of, give you an idea of the speed. And we'll do some speed comparisons of the same video generated basically with Grok. We're going to look at the video speed with nothing running, which is only like a little over 3 second sample, and it's a 480p resolution. So this is the same resolution that you'll basically get on Grok, unless you select the 720p option, which basically Grok basically starts. They don't really run on a credit system per se, but if you start running too many 720p runs, basically all of a sudden you're going to come up with this message that says, okay guy, it's time to pay you up because you're basically using too much of our data center, which kind of hacked me off a little bit, because when I originally signed up for the $300 a year plan, basically it was like, okay, you can generate 200 6-second clips a day, and we won't complain. But after about 5 months into the program, into the Grok program, all of a sudden, after about 15 10-second clips, they basically started shutting me off and say, hey, you need to upgrade to their Super Grok or whatever they call the thing for like $1,200 a year. And that really, I thought was kind of a bait and switch tactic on the part of Mr. Musk. But anyway, I'll let you come to your own conclusions on that. But anyway, like I said, this was like a little over 3 second sample, done in roughly about 10 minutes. At a resolution of 480p, which is of course 854 in width by 480 pixels in height. Okay. And while we're talking about image resolution, let's just kind of look at a few interesting numbers here. Okay, so the 480p, like I said, which is the kind of the standard resolution that you get on Grok. So it's 854 by 480, and that's called standard definition. So that's about 410,000, total pixels in one frame. And the 720p, which, like I said, you can generate that on Grok, but it takes a little more credits, okay? But typically, what I've done when I've used Grok, I've done like a 480, and then you do an upscale, which isn't as good as generating it, straight off the bat at 720p. But as far as I could tell, it looked perfectly fine for the things that I was doing. So, but like I said, if you do it native generation at 720p, they're going to charge you more credits. You're going to get locked out a lot quicker than just doing it 480 and then upscaling. And then of course you have your 1080p, which is your Blu-ray, disc definition. And actually, I don't know of any models out there that generated actually at 1080p. At least I haven't seen any. They're probably out there, I'm sure, but I don't know of any right offhand. I haven't really been looking for them. I mean, 480 scaled up to 720 is plenty of resolution, in my opinion, anyway. At least for what I'm using it for. But let's go ahead and take a look here, and let's kind of look at what ComfyUI can do. Okay, so we've got our WAN 2.2. This is an image to video. So basically, you give it an image. Okay, the resolution of the image doesn't really matter. Like I just picked 1792 by 1008, which was actually generated on Grok. Okay. So this is after it was upscaled, as I recall. And you hit the run button, and it goes off, and it does its magic. And, that's what you end up with. And like I said, 3.2 seconds, which is 81 frames, which I think is the limitation of this model. You're basically only limited to 81 frames, is my understanding, okay? And because of that, I started working. I haven't finished this yet, but I started working on a batch process where I'm basically going to end up taking the last frame, from the previous video, and using that as the starting image for the first frame for the next one. And theoretically, with that, I mean, it's got a job queue here, so you can run a batch process, and you can basically, paste in as many prompts as you want to. So basically just have your prompts ready to go, or just generate them on the fly. And basically the little Spark will basically start, churning away, and start putting all the clips out. And then of course you just take all the clips and put them into like a video editor of some sort. One nice video editor that I've seen, I've got my own, standalone editor, but CapCut's is really nice. I'm using the free version, but there's a lot you can do with the free version. Okay, so anyway, let's just show you this right here. Show you the neat things here. I like this Higgs with reference voice. Okay, there's a couple of different ways of running this. You can use reference voice. And so in other words, if you have a voice that you like, and in this case, I'm using this voice right here.
She set the jar down and found it.
So basically, that's like an 11-second sample that I've given, this model right here. And so basically, I'm just going to give it this text right here. It says, "Hello, this is Higgs Audio version 3 running natively inside ComfyUI." And then you can just go out and then save the, the results. I think it actually puts it into the assets after it's finished. So anyway, or you can just go back in with the CLI and just, pull it off and, do whatever you want to with it. So anyway, let's go ahead and just run this short one right here. This shouldn't take too long. And we're off to the races. Yeah, while we're waiting on this to finish up, personally, based on my experience, I seriously doubt AI is ever going to be able to compete with a human brain. Okay, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One is I think the boys that are basically running these giant data centers, and they're spending billions and billions, like Gemini, ChatGPT, Mr. Tesla, of course, and Grok and all this other stuff. I mean, you hear a lot of hoopla about how, if we just only had, infinite amount of power, we could compete with the human brain. Well, that's total baloney, in my humble opinion. Okay, so basically, it's finished. I'm not sure how long that took, but it ended up being a 6-second video. Maybe we can look in here on the assets and actually inspect to see how long it actually took. So that took 59 seconds to do like one sentence. and I'm not sure if you have the benefit of scale or not. But anyway, let's just go ahead and play this and kind of see how it sounds.
Hello, this is Higgs Audio v3 running natively inside ComfyUI.
Okay, so basically if we compare that.
Empty. Confront the tragic catastrophe of spiritual leakage. She set the jar down.
So anyway, obviously you can tell that it did use the sample that I gave it. So pretty nice. And I was using this on a PC with a 16 gigabyte graphics card, and this is much faster than running it on the the rather decent PC that I was using and the good graphics card that I was using. So the Spark, in terms of this audio generation, from text, is quite a bit faster. The other thing that I got working here was basically a Suno, if you would. So this is text audio. So what you end up doing is just like you do with Suno, you basically give it a description of the style. Okay, so synthwave, techno, synth pop, futuristic, blah 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 blah, and then you give it a couple of verses of lyrics, whatever, and hit the run button. Oh, actually, there's a quality setting here too. I'm not sure what that means. I haven't actually, because I've only had this thing 3 days now, so I'm still trying to, I'm still learning, as they say. But, you can even set the key scale too. I just saw that. This is really cool. I've done quite a bit in the last 3 days, and, Rome wasn't built in a day, so it takes a while. But let's just go ahead and let's just create our song here, okay? So it's queued up. You can drop down. Like I said, this is batch. So this is the video I generated earlier all by itself with nothing else running. And right now, it looks like it's doing a pretty decent little job there. It's moving along, as they say. And you can kind of look up here and you can see, how far to completion that is. I don't know exactly if this is like I don't know what these two numbers are exactly. Apparently this is like the total amount of completion. No, actually, that's not. I guess that's the step that it's on right now. Yeah, I just saw that reset. Okay, so I believe, we're done. Job completed. So we generated 2 minutes worth of a song, okay? And didn't take very long at all. Suno's probably a little faster than that, but I've seen, and you're going to get to listen to it here for yourself. But the quality is actually quite good. So this was our speech to. This was a speech that we just did, right? 6 seconds.
Hello, this is Higgs Audio.
Okay, that took 59 seconds to generate that. And then the song generation took, 51 seconds. So let's play a song, see how it, turned out. So it's a 2 minute song. So, yeah, really, if you sometimes if a lot of people are using, say, Suno, it's comparable in terms of the speed. Of course, I'm one user using one tiny little 100-watt, quote-unquote, supercomputer here in my den, versus, like I say, that gigawatt, data center that's servicing, I don't know, 1,000, 100,000, 50,000, who knows how many users. So let's play the song, see what it sounds like. Yeah, one thing I'm noticing is kind of odd right now is I don't hear the lyrics. So I've used this a couple times before and it's generated lyrics. And right now I don't hear that, which is kind of strange. So let's just generate one more time. Let's see if we hear the lyrics. I'm not sure if I flipped a switch or something on here where it is ignoring the lyrics. I really can't tell you. Like I said, I've only had this gadget for about 3 days now, so I'm still learning. But I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to show you all the warts along with the good stuff, the good and the bad, as I say. Like I said, I don't know what V0 stands for. I'd have to look that up right now. Since I'm in the middle of the video, I'm not going to bother doing that. Okay, let's see what the preview sounds like. Oh, sorry, just finished here. We got our lyrics now.
Dreams compile silver sheet. Oh,
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what the difference. You know, I guess I think that's what they call hallucinations. The first thing you'll notice on Gemini. First thing you'll notice on Gemini is the fact that they have a little disclaimer on the bottom is AI makes mistakes, and it certainly does. You've got to keep your eye on AI no matter what you're doing with it. And you know, as I've already said, I think that basically AI is never going to basically match up to the to the intelligence of a human person, or the efficiency, especially the efficiency. So, based on what I remember, a human brain consumes around maybe 10 to 12 to 15 watts of power, and compared to a gigawatt data center, I think a human brain is actually a pretty good deal, as I say. And I think a lot of corporations kind of underestimate what a deal that they're getting, by hiring people, that have a human brain. Now there are some people out there that probably use considerably less than 10 watts of of power, but I'm not going to get into that. It's kind of a little joke there, as I say. Okay, like I said. The WAN 2.2 is limited to, I think, 81 frames is what I've understand. And I've got a process here, which I haven't finished yet. I'm going to try to basically do a batch process. And what that basically is going to amount to is I'm going to feed it the seed image, if you would. And that goes right here in this little box. And then it goes around and around and around, and goes through all these different, processes. And the plan is to basically take the last frame from the previous video and then seed that back in to the first frame of the next video. So this runs in a batch mode, so you can have, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 prompts or whatever, however many you can stuff, into this, and just hit run, and they'll basically batch it on out, and it'll just run one after the other. So my plan is probably just to batch it up for around a three, basically 10-second clip is what I'm looking for, because that's kind of what you're getting on Grok. And like I said, I'm not happy at all with Grok, because they're pulling this bait and switch type stuff, which to me is not right, but it is what it is. And like I said, whether you're running Grok or whether you're running a local, LLM or local audio generator, song generator, whatever, you're going to have hallucinations, as it's called, glitches, mistakes, you name it. Just like we just saw right here, where it basically totally ignored the lyrics on the first generation, and on the second generation, it picked it up and used the lyrics. Now, let me see. I might be. Yeah, no, it only generated. That was the first one right here, which did not generate the lyrics. But the generation times are 59 seconds, 50 seconds, and 30 seconds. Let's run this one here. It almost acts like it generated two of these. Yeah, I've noticed that before. Sometimes it almost seems like it generates.
Dreams come by.
It almost seems like it generates two copies or two generations, just with different, that are slightly different. And other times it. Okay, that was the one where we didn't have any lyrics. Let's look at this one down here. Okay, that was our text to audio synthesis, right? Okay.
Hello.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. So that is that. So I hope you enjoyed that little demonstration. And before we go to the video generation, what I want to do now is jump back out here, and we're going to basically push the Spark, to its limits, or at least we're going to try to here. And so far, I have not been able to crash it. I'm sure if you intentionally push it, you're going to crash it. But I haven't crashed it yet. I'm come close to the the 100% usage on the GPU VRAM memory, and also the running 100%, so on and so forth. It gets toasty, and we'll look at that too. Okay, so right now, basically, like I said, I'll revert back here. So we're basically got 40 gigs worth. Like I said, about 4 gigs of that is the Linux console, which of course I'm not using since I'm running this remotely, on a little laptop right now. So basically what it'll do is it'll give you like a port number along with the local IP address of the server, which just happens to be on 10.0.0.17. Okay, so I'll talk about resolution right before we do the video generation. But right now, let's just go ahead and load up the Llama large language model, okay? And before we can actually click on the tab, we've got to go ahead and load it. So we're going to go back out here to our handy dandy Jupyter interface, which is really nice too. I like that a lot. Like I said, I'm running ComfyUI as a service just because I anticipate I'm using that probably more than anything. And Llama, I'm just going to, as of right now anyway, I'm just going to basically run it as a terminal initiated, large language model server. So we'll go ahead and run the server, and it's loading right now. Now I've run it when I load the model just by itself without the ComfyUI running, it's taking 2 or 3 seconds to load. Now if I load it with the ComfyUI already loaded, okay, it takes a little bit longer, okay. So as of right now, we still do not have our IP address. So we're not ready to click our tab until we see the IP. And I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. If someone understands that, I'd appreciate you putting it down in the comments, because I'd like to know why it only takes maybe 2 to 3 seconds to load that 40 gig model without anything else loading. I don't know if it's got something to do with the memory management within the operating system of the Spark, or I don't really know what's going on there. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there a lot smarter than I am, But if you'd love to comment on that, I'd love to hear it. So right now, okay, looks like our model may have finished loading. Let's take a look here. Oops, sorry, that's for our tab right there. Let's go back out here and see where we are at. Okay, yeah, sure enough. So as soon as we saw that spike pop up, it finished loading. So we can go back here and look, and I'm assuming these are seconds. So instead of taking maybe 2 to 3 seconds, it took, I think, around 23 seconds, which still wasn't too bad. I mean, if you're doing this on a PC, it would be a lot, well, assuming you even had, that amount of VRAM, which would cost you a fortune, okay? 23 seconds ain't a long time to wait by no stretch of the imagination. So we're just going to move this over to our monitor, and we can then monitor the temperature of the processors and also the speed, and kind of see what's going on. Okay, so basically, like I said, we obviously have our ComfyUI up and running. We've I think I proved that by basically generating some nice little song and some text to voice. And now let's go ahead and open up this tab right here. Let's click on Llama large language model, and there it is. Okay, and let's just make sure. So that's a 70B 3.3, apparently one of the latest and greatest models. And this is not something you're going to be able to run on your average graphics card on a PC. It's pretty intense in terms of memory usage. Matter of fact, before we give it a prompt here, let's oh yeah, see right there. So total 128 right now. We're got about 122 gigs of memory. We're not really doing anything right now, so the GPU utilization is is pretty much zeroed out. So let's just do a test, make sure everything's working okay. So I'm just going to ask it a simple question like, what is a good temperature to go for a bike ride? Okay, hit return. And it looks like it's putting out about 5 tokens per second right there. So that's actually, pretty decent little clip, 4.6. I mean, it's probably as fast as I can read. The ideal temperature for a bike ride depends on personal preference, the type of ride, and the clothing you wear. However, here are some general guidelines. Comfortable temperatures, 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 1524 C. Blah, 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 blah. So we're right at about 5 tokens per second, give or take, if we round up there. And it goes on and on and on. So that's total tokens, the total elapsed time, and the current speed of the generation. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to run the WAN under ComfyUI video generator, and then I'm going to basically give this a long task to run, and we're going to see how things slow down, okay? And they will slow down. Not by a whole lot, but it's noticeable. Let's put it that way. But right now we're pretty much pushing the little spark. So let's see what our temperature is right now. So we went up from like 40 C to 59 C. No effect on the speed of the GPU there. So there's obviously it's not overheating. Otherwise, this would start throttling back, and I've never seen it throttle back. So, but right now, see the temperature starting to go up a little bit, 61 C, and it'll get warmer than that once we start running both. I've seen it up. I think the tops has been about 70 degrees C, which is kind of toasty. So let's go back here and look at this. So looks like the LLM is finished. It's given us all our good information, and it goes in there: wind chill factors, humidity, blah blah blah. Stay hydrated by drinking plenty of water before, during, and after you ride. That's always good advice, I guess, especially if you're down here in the south. So our average was like 4.6 tokens per second. I think that's very acceptable. I mean, obviously in comparison, if you open up Gemini, it's going to be a lot quicker. But I'm not even going to bother demonstrating that. You could do that on your own. But, then again, once you have your hardware and you get everything installed, you just use it. So you don't have to worry about, paying $15 a month for servers or $300 a year for the Grok thing, and then have them, try to pull the bait and switch on you, so on and so forth. Okay. So let's look here real quick at resolution. Okay. So resolution is basically what the size or the number of pixels in width and in height. Okay. So we're going to be generating at 480p, which is what I generated at in Grok, as I've previously said. So that's 854 pixels by 480 pixels. Okay. And like I said, if you generate at 720 to start off with, which is better, okay, in Grok, but they basically, you can only get away with so many of those. Like I said, they've got me basically throttled down now with their little bait and switch tactic to maybe 15, 10-second frames. And at that point, I got to wait like 24 hours before I can do anything else with it, which is really not, I'm not very happy about that at all, because it's not right. I don't know of any video generators that generate at 1080p. I'm sure that if you go to one of these Pixar studios or something like that, I'm sure they have those models, or something comparable, or maybe even higher. But just for the consumer use, that's basically what you're going to get. So basically on Grok, you do a 480p, and then you do an upscale, and you upscale it to like a 720 or whatever. Okay. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do now is, okay, first we're going to go back here. Let's look at our dashboard, okay? So everything's finished up. Nothing's going on here. We got no video generation going on. We have no LLM activity. Look at the board. Sure enough, we don't see any ups and downs. If you look down here, the first line here is the LLM, okay? 0 CPU, and this is kind of the amount of VRAM that it's reserving. So this is reserving about 81 gigs of VRAM. The ComfyUI with the WAN model loaded is around 22 that's reserving. And that includes the model size, plus some caching that they throw in. So caching is basically just used for, I guess you'd call workspace, scratch space, whatever, however you want to refer to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. I'm guessing our video generation is going to take longer. So we're going to start our video generation first. I can tell you why, just to make this a little apples to apples kind of thing, I'm going to give it a prompt, okay? So this should be pretty long. Explain and summarize the book of Genesis. G-E-N-I-S-I-S, I think it's about Genesis. G-E-N-E-S-I-S, isn't it? E-N-E-S-I-S. Okay, so we're going to start that now. Off she goes. The book of Genesis is the first book of the Hebrew Bible. Okay, I think we all, at least most of us, should know that. And right now it's still clicking away at about 4.7 tokens per second. And while that's working, let's go ahead and click run, and we're going to do our video generation. And like I said, this is a 854 by 40, so it's 480p. And it's going to basically go through all the magic boxes. Or as they call it, a workflow. So let's go out and take a look here and see what's happening. Okay, and our GPU utilization is pegged almost at 96%. This really isn't changing a whole lot, mainly because it's pretty much kind of been reserved. I'm assuming this may be some kind of caching activity or something that's going on, is why that's changing. I don't really know exactly why. If anybody would like to basically fill us in on that, please put it in the comments. I like this little tab up here. It kind of gives you like a total progress, and hopefully we'll see that increase. It's kind of gotten to the slow steps. The two slow steps are the low and the high noise, models. They're basically two 15 gigabyte models that run in series with each other. They don't both run at the same time, but there's like the high noise and the low noise, and it appears, I'm not sure what the exact order is. I think it runs actually the high noise first and then follows it with the low noise. So I'm guessing, and I'm guessing now, is that that probably relates to the fact that when you start one of these AI models, it basically starts off with 100% noise and then basically turns this randomized noise into a product that's basically defined by the description. Okay, this is called a positive prompt. Okay, and this is called a negative prompt. So in other words, the couple runs up to the camera suddenly as if waking from a nightmare, looking around frantically at their surroundings. Handheld camera shake to convey distress, moody dark lighting, suspenseful tone. So basically you're telling it, that's what I really want you to produce. Okay. Real quick. Okay, let's see if our LLM still running. Yep, LLM still running. It's slowed down a little bit. Okay. Now we got two processes running. Got basically 100% CPU utilization, and I'm guessing there's some swapping going on, back and forth from the GPU to the CPU, for the various matrix calculations that are going on in the GPU, because basically the GPU is just kind of like the raw matrix number cruncher, and the GPU is more or less the executive. It's kind of like the supervisor. It kind of says, okay, yeah, you've gotten a good enough, let's say, you've got to a good enough probability standpoint to where you've probably got the right answer, is kind of my understanding of how like LLMs and, things like that, run when they're generating, tokens and, answers and so on and so forth. But this hasn't really slowed down a whole bunch. Like I said, before on our first one, it was around, let's see, 4.6. And right now with two things going on, we're down to like, 3. So, hey, and personally, if you're trying to read along right here, if you're really trying to focus on what it says, it's going through actually all the chapters and verses in the entire book of Genesis. Okay, so it's doing a rather good job. So up here, I think this is actually the total completion right here on the video generation, as I recall. So right now, I think we're at about 50% in terms of this first high noise process. So let's see. So the frame rates, while this is working, I just keep talking to give you some more information. Let's look at some of this stuff. So this is like 25 frames per second, which is a decent frame rate. It's kind of a standard frame rate. And she's working away. Let's see. I think the one on the left, I think that might be for like the individual process. In other words, individual box. Like I said, I don't really understand this. Like I said, if somebody could explain what these two numbers mean, I'd certainly appreciate it. I haven't had a chance to actually Google that yet or ask the AI guy. And just because I've been busy, trying to get all this other stuff working. And it takes a little bit of time to get all this stuff up and running. But, like I said, I've gotten the two different models up and running, like a text to video, an image to video. And that's a 2.214B, which I think is a fairly large, video model. And this is the one I'm using right now is the 2.2. Let's see. This is the image to video. I'm trying to remember what the actual. Well, they're both 2.2. I don't really know what the sizes are. They're both pretty robust in terms of size. I'm not sure if there's that much difference. This is actually supposed to be a light version of this one. But in my opinion, this light version, quote unquote light version, seems to produce a better resolution, and seems to actually run faster than the first model that I loaded. So I might eventually end up, taking off the image to video part of this. But then again, like I said, you get a 4 terabyte, drive that comes with the NVIDIA Spark, Spark machine. So, one other thing, there are other companies, I believe, like Asus, that basically make the same box, just a different package. And the other companies, is my understanding that on their 4 terabyte drive, or excuse me, I think some of them actually only sell it with like a 1 terabyte drive. You'd have to look it up to be exact, but the ones that I won't call them knockoffs per se, but they're all using the same basic computing guts. They're all using the same NVIDIA Grace Blackwell 10 setup. But what they're doing is they're using cheaper SSDs. So some of them are using like a Gen 4, which is half the speed of the Gen 5 SSD that comes with the NVIDIA Spark. So those are like little things that they don't really like to advertise, but if you do enough research and stuff like that, you'll quickly see that some of them are cutting corners, even though they're charging as much, or maybe in some cases more, than the original NVIDIA. The only thing that a lot of people have problems with is the fact that this is a Linux machine. So you're going to have to get comfortable with using a command line interface, because really it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to run this, from the machine, which you could if you wanted to. But if you're just going to basically be doing, like I'm doing right now, applications, or even, say model tuning or something like that, then, hey, let's see. So anyway, our video is still generating actually. And I don't know, I'm guessing that we've probably already passed our 314 second mark, and mainly because we were running the model, the LLM model, which has finished. Okay, so it generated 938 tokens. There are roughly, I think, around 10 tokens per average English, sentence, give or take a little bit, depending on what the word is and stuff like that. So, but the average was 2.5 tokens per second, and that's with both things running. So basically, having our video generator running at the same time that we were running our LLM, okay, kind of dragging down the speed of both, the LLM and the video generator, which is to be expected. It's going to happen. And normally I would probably, the way I plan on using it, if I don't use Gemini, is to basically just generate my prompts for the video generator, using the LLM, have those pre-canned sitting off in a Word file or something like that, and then I'll just basically copy and paste them into the prompt for the video generator. Okay, while this is finishing, I think what I'll do is kind of show you a comparison of a Grok video versus the standalone video that I generated earlier. Okay, and I think that you'll agree with me that the Spark video, to my surprise, now the Grok video generation speed is going to be a lot faster. And of course that would vary depending on if you got like no users using the data center, or if you got like a bazillion users using the data center, because they've only got so many GPUs running in that data center. They got so much power, so they've basically, if there's a ton of users on there, the generation speed is going to be slower. Okay, but my guess is, and this is just a guess, that the generation speed, apples to apples, in other words, same resolution, same amount of time in a in a video clip, 6 seconds, 3 seconds, or whatever. The speed of Grok right now is probably going to be 4 or 5 times faster. Now that's just kind of like a gut feeling based on experience. I haven't sat down with a stopwatch or anything like that. Well, actually I have, and that's kind of what I came up with, 4 or 5 times faster. And of course you're paying for that. Of course, I had to pay for the Spark, little supercomputer also. Okay, it finished. So before we do the comparisons, let's just go out here to our assets and let's take a look. So basically, the LLM did indeed slow it down, because that took 671 seconds for the same video. So let's look at the 304. So 314 versus 671. So basically it doubled our generation time. But then again, we had this big LLM running and thinking. So hey, what do you expect? And temperature, like I said, right now it's cooling down because everything's stopped. But the highest I've seen this get up to, with everything going full speed, WAO, it was around 70 degrees C, right at that. And I'm sure the fan had kicked on at that point. And the GPU, its speed never really slows down per se. But anyway, so the models are still in the memory. Obviously, everything's finished. So, we don't have much going on in terms of activity, which is to be expected. You're not doing anything. The models stay in the memory, but the CPU, GPU are not active. So let's just look at this guy first and kind of blow him up a little bit. And of course I can see artifacts, and that's just part of the AI process, I guess. But all in all, it looks pretty sharp. It ain't bad. Now let's go back and look, because one thing I've kind of noticed, and I'm not sure if this is a thing or not, but when I've run like the LLM, at the same time that I've run the video generation, I could have swore I saw more artifacts in the results. Okay, so let's just take a look at this right now, and I wouldn't think that would be a thing, and actually this is obviously very subjective. Okay, but I think I actually see less artifacts in this one than I do in the one that took half as long when it was just running by itself. So yeah, it's interesting, huh? Yeah, but if you look at like the ferns and stuff right here, the detail on the ferns, like the girl's sweater, all look pretty downright good, I think. Okay, so anyway, like I said, in my estimation, for a paid service like Grok, you're going to basically, be able to do things 4 or 5 times faster. Once I get my batch thing up and running, it ain't going to really matter to me, because I'm just going to basically, stick them out there and just let it run in batch mode and run off and go watch a TV show or, have a cup of coffee or something like that. But let's see, I think I've already covered this, but once you start looking at definitions, okay, like on a 480p, you got 410,000 pixels per frame. 720 HD, you're talking 920,000 pixels, so a little less than 1 million pixels that the little computer's got to produce every, one frame, 25 frames a second. And then of course you get up to 1080p, then we're getting into some serious numbers here. So we're talking like 2 million total pixels, okay? But as I say, you get what you paid for. Okay, so I think the final thing that we'll do before I kind of come to maybe a short conclusion is let's just take a look and compare the Grok to the, okay, this is running like full screen in VLC, okay? So like I said, this is a Spark video and looks pretty clean. Okay, now we're going to run the same video that was generated by Grok. Like I said, 4 to 5 times faster. Okay, the scene is, the prompt's a little bit different, but if you look at it, the faces to me on the Grok video, the resolution doesn't, or the detail, I guess I should say, doesn't really look as good until they actually come to a stop. Okay, so in terms of artifacts and the faces and stuff like that, as long as they're moving like that, I'm seeing quite a bit more artifacts than I'm actually seeing with the same video that was produced on the Spark, which that kind of surprised me. I did not expect that, and I did not upscale this, as I recall. So like I said, I wanted to be apples to apples. So this is like a 480 to 480. Now, had I upscaled this, of course, once you upscale, you're going to basically be upscaling the artifacts also. So you're not going to really gain much. Some people say that the upscaling creates sharp edges where there shouldn't be sharp edges, and introduces its own problems. But once again, we'll look at the Grok here, and then we'll shift back to the video generated on the Spark. Okay, so like I say, slightly different, but all in all, I think the Spark video is just slightly better, which surprises me. Put something down there in the comments and let me know what you think, because I always like to have input from other people. Like I said, this is entirely subjective. I don't really know how you measure quality objectively. I think that's always going to kind of be a subjective kind of a thing. So we'll go ahead and shut those down now. And anyway, so a lot of people say that this DGX dashboard isn't that accurate. I mean, to me, it's more than accurate enough. I really like the Jupyter Lab interface. It's simple. Like I said, I'm primarily a Windows user, so I like mice and pointing around. But at the same time, I can type probably as fast as just about anybody. So but then again, you've got to remember all the magic commands, stuff like that, which after you use it a while, you start doing that. Okay, one advantage and disadvantage that I'll mention here while I've got this window up. Like I said, this is the LLM AI model, and when you run something in a window, you basically end up creating a log file. Okay, which is kind of nice because you can kind of see what it actually did. So, and let's just take a look at comparison. So this was the last thing it did when I had both things running. So we're looking at 1.93 tokens per second, 2 tokens per second, and this is while the video was generating. Okay, and these are probably, like I said, the video generator, its CPU usage and GPU usage, it's got up and down depending on what it's doing. But here you see 4.7 or 4.17 tokens per second, and let me see, 4.6. So that's when we first started, I guess. That could have been from a previous run too. So anyway, if you just run this by itself, it's running at almost 5 tokens a second, which is plenty fast, if you ask me. Because for all practical purposes, I don't think you're going to be able to actually read that fast. Okay, let's say that. Let's go back here and look one more time. I do recommend this nvtop interface. It's a nice little utility. It'll basically, tell you how. I think the fan speed percentage is broken, because it always says NA for some reason, so I'm thinking that's not working right. But it does give you the wattage that it's using. Like I said, with no models loaded, it sits at about 4 watts of power. Okay, and with 2 models running, I've seen it about 90 watts, as I recall. I don't know. I may have been able to see that earlier when I was running both models. maybe you just rewind the video or something like that, move it back, and you can go back and look that up if you want to. So anyway, like I said, this is like a real world, my benchmark, Herman's benchmark. So you take it for what it's worth. But I certainly hope that this has given you some insight to what this thing can do in the real world. And I think it's a good productivity tool. I mean, you know, AI is never going to match the power of a human brain. It ain't going to happen. I don't care what Altman and the rest of those guys say. It just ain't going to happen, okay? Matter of fact, I got a little Windows artifact right there preparing to record it. You know, that's my background recorder going on. So, I mean, you know, you got glitches in Windows, you got glitches in AI. The bottom line is trust but verify. I think as Ronald Reagan said a long time ago. So anyway, I certainly hope you enjoy this. I hope you get some good information from it if you're considering buying the Spark. And appreciate you watching it. If you enjoyed the video, got some good information out of it that you can use in making your decision, by all means, give me a like, you know, thumbs up. And thanks a bunch for watching. Subscribe to the channel too, if you don't mind. I've got what I think some pretty decent AI content up there, and actually a little bit of non-AI content. So I like to dabble in all sorts of things. Like I said, I'm like the dog that says squirrel. You know, well, I have an attention span, but sometimes I'm easily distracted. But anyway, thanks a bunch, and we will talk to you later. I'm going to shut her down, but anyway, just throw me a comment or two. I'd really like to know what everybody thinks. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.